Oh, no. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. My name is Jesse McClellan, and I am with ROI Safety Services, and welcome to our free weekly safety training. This week's topic will be fall protection and/or working surfaces, including fall protection. So we're going to cover the OSHA 10 training material that we normally do with, like, we'll do an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 30 class, and this is the curriculum that we will loosely be covering for you. This training's primarily for those who are in a management position, business owners, anybody, really just anybody who wants a good understanding of what's required for any particular topic that we've been doing over the last month or two. This month's topic is working surfaces and fall protection, so like ladders and working at elevated surfaces. So it will not be a supplement for training. So if you are looking to get a full blown training class, this is not for you. This is for somebody who needs to know what the requirements are, how to implement them, what to look for, and what resources can be utilized. Okay, so I will get started in a second. Let me switch over here. All right, so walking and working surfaces, including fall protection. Slips, trips, and falls make up the majority of general industry accidents and cause 15% of accidental deaths, second only to motor vehicle crashes. So it's pretty significant. We have, in when I say we, I mean ROI Safety Services as a whole have experienced the majority of our injuries are strains and slips, trips, and falls. So that's the majority of injuries that, as a business consulting with companies across the country, deal with. So slips, trips, and falls, strains, those are the most common injuries that we deal with when we work with our clients. And over my 30-year career, that's pretty much that's the majority of our injuries are slips, trips, and falls, and strains and sprains, which usually result from that. So our objective is, this is our primary objective, is to recognize employer requirements to protect workers from walking and working surfaces. Now, this is going to be the primary goal for this particular message today. We will have time to identify some hazards in the workplace, how to mitigate some of those hazards, but the real focus is just understanding what you need to do as an employer, as a manager, in order to ensure that your employees are safe. That's my primary goal with this class and everyone we've done and everyone we will be doing in the future. It's not a comprehensive training class. That's something that the employer must do on site, site specific. And I'm going to say this every single class. You must have site specific training. Getting on a video, doing some training, relying on this to be your training, it just doesn't work. It's not comprehensive enough. And again, if it's not site specific, it doesn't have any value. Okay, there may be some things you could learn that you can go onto a video, like HAZCOM is a pretty simple one to learn. Driving a forklift, it's not going to work. But again, I'll go back to HAZCOM. I don't know what chemicals you have there. I can show you how to read a safety data sheet, but I don't know what products you have at your location. So that's why it needs to be site specific. So managers, business owners, this is directed to you. The training must be site specific. So to prevent employees from being injured from falls, employers must guard every floor hole in which a worker can accidentally walk through. Provide a guardrail, toe boards around every open sided platform, floor, or runaway that is 4 feet or higher. I was at a location, I should say I'm at locations quite often that I see docks, shipping and receiving areas that are well over 4 feet, that should have some kind of railing or something to warn those walking in the area. I was at a very, very old hotel 2 weeks ago in downtown, not in downtown LA, and I should say Beverly Hills, doing a walkthrough. And in this particular hotel in Beverly Hills, there was a pretty old shipping and receiving area that did not have any fall protection. And it had been like that for probably over 50 years. And I don't think anyone's ever fallen. There was no indication of that when I was with the client, but it could happen. You just never know. There needs to be a railing system put into place and a warning put into place. So these are things that need to get done at every location. Floors that have holes or have leading edges that are less than, I think it's 5 feet or no, maybe 10 feet. I don't know about that one. I have to follow up with that leading edge requirement. But if you are working above 4 feet, you must have fall protection. Whether it be a guardrail or some sort of system like that. So regardless of the height, if a worker can fall into a dangerous machine or equipment, employers must have guardrails and toe boards. So even if it's not 4 foot and you are potentially can be exposed to some gears or something that can cause harm, you need to have some sort of a protective device. Other means of fall protection that may require on certain jobs include safety harnesses and line, safety nets, stair railings, and hand railings. So these are the kinds of railings that are expected to be used in order to protect your employees. Employers must provide a working condition that are free of any known hazards. Any known hazards. Keep floors and work areas in clean and sanitary condition. Select and provide required personal protective equipment at no cost to your people. Train people on job hazards in a language that can be understood by your particular workforce. So let's camp out a little bit on housekeeping, which is keeping your area clean. The first thing that anybody who comes into your facility sees is going to be your housekeeping. I have done hundreds and hundreds of inspections over the years, and when I see poor housekeeping, I immediately start looking into what other areas that may need some assistance. And every single time, if there's poor housekeeping, every other area within that organization is going to be suffering. And I'm not the only one that sees these kinds of triggers. OSHA, EPA, and other agencies also see them as well. They're no different than what I'm doing. When they come in and do an inspection, they're going to look for the same thing. So housekeeping is important. Now, I do get and I fully comprehend that there are times of your day that housekeeping will not be at its best, performance. And everybody gets that part, right? If you're running a machine shop and you got scrap on the ground, we understand that. But if it's everywhere, if it's pouring out of your drum, if there's oil on the ground, if there's rags everywhere, then, that's not part of your normal process. Okay. So those are some things that I look at, and we deal with enough machine shops, wood shops that we know that, hey, if you don't have a really good disciplined housekeeping program, it's going to be obvious, right? It doesn't matter really what time of day you're there. Also, PPE, personal protection equipment, is required to be provided by the employer, okay, at no cost. You must provide PPE to your people, okay? It is a requirement, and at no cost. So here's some examples. I like to throw some examples. And again, this is from the OSHA 10 course that we provide our students. Slip hazards, oil, grease. We've had a lot of rain in California. That's where I'm based out of. We don't normally get a lot of rain. We probably get about maybe 5 to 10 rain days a year. We've had quite a few this 2023 season. So slippery surfaces are kind of new to us, especially, when it rains, docks get real slippery. So we want to make sure that we clean our docks. We have slippery when wet signs, and we have good shoes. Now, those of you on the East Coast or who experience rain, you guys should be for sure ensuring that the surfaces are free of any water or snow or ice, and make sure that they have proper footwear. Okay. Controlling slip hazards. So keep walkway or surfaces clean, as dry as possible. And I know it's a challenge in certain environments, but I tell you what, the most common injuries are definitely slips, trips, and falls. So make sure your footwear is slip resistant as possible. Require drainage for wet operations, cleanup, or mark and report spills. Remove ice and snow as often as you possibly can. These are some areas that definitely during peak manufacturing operating hours, whatever time of day that is, definitely can get overlooked. And that's when we see issues happening. I was in a wood shop area, and there's several peaks in a wood shop that it just looks like total chaos. But that's a controlled environment in which only certain people can go in there, and there will be a lot of wood debris on the ground at certain times of the day, and that's part of the process. Now, that's when you don't allow people other than the workers in that area. That's just one example of just isolating areas, making sure only certain people can go in and out. But again, you still need to be careful and watch for slip and trip hazards. But limiting people from going in and out is a good way of managing that. And here's just some general housekeeping. I mean, it looks like damaged asphalt, having blocks just for no reason standing around, having stuff leaning up against the wall. Pallets are pretty common. And the one on the right, I definitely have been at plating shops and chemical blending shops where there's been gaps in flooring like that. I've had a few people fall through them, which is really unfortunate. I was working for this company again on the West Coast in Southern California. I will not name them. And they are a very large plating shop, and somebody had removed a piece of grating to do some work on it. But unfortunately for the person in the area, they didn't let them know. And they were walking backwards, as one does when they do the plating process. There's times when they don't look because it happens so quickly. They fell backwards into the pit, and we're very thankful that person didn't get hurt. Scared them. They didn't get hurt. They got a little bruised, but nothing significant. But the risk it was very high, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a whole lot worse. So letting people know when you're making adjustments to platforms, when you're cleaning surfaces, or when you're going to be doing things in your area, warning others not to come through your area, put up barricades. The one on the left here, this super common in manufacturing. I was at a winery a couple weeks ago, and when the wine process, there's just a lot of chaos going on, lots of hoses on the ground. It could be wine, it could be any kind of chemical manufacturing environment. You're going to have hoses everywhere. You're going to have stuff around that could cause a potential trip hazard. And you know what? That's just part of the process. And we need to keep people out that do not need to be in there, only have personnel in there that need to be in there. So we need to control the environment, put up cones or barricade. The one in the middle, that's just crazy. I like that they put some barricade tape on there. I hope that works, but that's just part of the process, having loose pipes. Again, these are all part of the process, part of doing the job. And then how do we control these hazards? Well, you saw a couple, attempts to put up, those strips, those barricade tape. It's a good idea. I like the idea of keeping a well-lit environment, having areas marked and barricaded, and inspecting your area regularly, ensuring that nobody will come through that is not permitted to go through your area. Hoses and cables, in a perfect world, hoses and cables would be fixed, right? We'd always have a fixed area. But the reality of it is that doesn't happen. Chemical blending areas, a lot of stuff that we do in chemical blending areas can be hard piped, but then when we transfer certain products or we do specialty R&D stuff, we may have to go to a hose, a free hose, And it's just part of the process, and it will create problems. So we just got to be mindful of what we're doing in our manufacturing environment. Certainly don't want to, say that, oh, everything must be hard piped. I would like to have it hard piped, but come on. It just doesn't make sense in everything we do in chemical blending and in the real world manufacturing environment, which is what I came from. I get what goes on in the manufacturing sectors, and some days are just real chaotic. Other days, more controlled. We could minimize the trip hazards, but eliminating the trip hazards is often a task that only happens on the weekend when nobody's there, right? And so that's not realistic. Now, here's some fall protection or fall hazards that we see. Elevated surfaces, checking tanks, towers, machines, platforms. These are areas that are very high risk, but we can manage them using harnesses and fall protection devices. Pits, tanks, vats, these are all common areas, confined spaces, very common areas that we go in and out of throughout our day. And we must provide protection against them. Other controls are structurally unsound surfaces. You can see here, exceeding the load limit. Years ago, when I was up in the high desert working on a program up with over there with NASA on the Deep Space Network program, there were a lot of volts like you see here. And we would park, well, not myself, but I would see people park golf carts on top of some of these, what we called vaults. Inadvertently, they wouldn't think about it, but parking your carts and driving over certain areas that are vaults, you got to be careful because they can fail. And so having warning signs up, putting cones up, do not park here, avoiding potential risks like that is a good idea in order to prevent people from falling through these vaults or these sensitive areas that can't contain a golf cart or a forklift. And tanks, towers, machines, and other elevated surface like the one you see here, it should all be engineered out. Most of them are, if not all of them, at least at the clients that I'm working with in California, very strict regulations here in the U.S. So guardrails are often used, whether they're temporary or permanent, and having some sort of personal fall arrest system. I want to remind you that this is not fall protection for construction. It's for general industry. Construction is a completely different beast that we will touch on a little bit, but by no means is it something that we're tackling today. ABCs of fall protection is anchor, body harness, and component. Snap hook or D-rings, however you're gonna tie off, as we say out in the field. And these are usually controlled environments, fixed environments, things that we're doing on a routine basis. Construction's a lot more fluid. Open-sided platforms and runaways, these are areas that we want to identify doing a gap analysis or some kind of internal audit. But once we identify them, we want to use proper rail systems at all times. There may be times we need to remove platforms and remove guardrails in order to go in and do some work at whatever we're doing. And that's when you want to use a harness, fall protection, whether it be a lanyard, harness, or something like that. Those are usually in a controlled environment and should be planned out. This is a pretty scary picture of a forklift falling through some wood decking. I have a client that has a wood deck like this, and every time I'm there, I always ask them, are you ensuring that you're not going on that with the forklift? And of course they tell me, yeah, but I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if they just do it one time, that wood decking will collapse. And it's a part of it's a really, really old building, very old building. And it has a concrete shipping area, but next to it, it has a wood deck. And it's just scary. I would prefer that they just remove the wood deck or maybe put a barricade up there, but you got to look out for stuff like that in these old buildings. So make sure that you barricade areas where you cannot operate forklifts, you put weight limits, and you do everything and anything you can to prevent people from going onto these unstable surfaces. Conditions leading to falls: ladders, scaffolding, stairways, floors, and wall openings, and other elevated surfaces. We can all get on, YouTube or Twitter and find these kinds of accidents happening. They're very common, especially with painters. Um, it's super common. I was going to show a video of a guy using some allegedly some fall protection, and he had I won't even get into it. But anyways, ladders, extension ladders, and fixed ladders. These are basic ladders that we all use in any kind of environment. So what are the requirements? Well, we need to make sure that we do inspections regularly, and we ensure that we're using the proper ladder for the proper job. I think there's a couple of slides on the improper way, but you got an A-frame, got a straight ladder, and you got these fixed ladders. They should be used as they were designed. This step ladder cannot be used like a straight ladder. That's what we see quite often. So use the right ladder for the right job. This is not a proper use of this A-frame ladder. You will fall down. It is very unsafe. So make sure that you're using the proper ladder. Go get the right ladder. This is a broken one. I had a client, they got hurt. They used the ladder that was on these two floor or bottom part of this ladder here were cut off for whatever reason at this particular client. I'm not sure if they were even. I don't know, but this particular client was using the ladder. It slipped and they fell and they got hurt. So that is something that you need to do, is inspect all of your ladders, straight ladders, A-frame ladders, fixed ladders. Inspect them regularly. Make sure that every single portable ladder you have has these stickers on it. This is a requirement. This is how you communicate to the person using your ladder the limitations of that ladder. So make sure you guys are doing regular inspections of the ladders. If you have ladders that don't have these stickers on it, you could either do one of two things: throw it away, get a new ladder. They're not expensive. It might be a good idea. If your labels are damaged, it's usually an indicator that the ladder is old and should be replaced anyways. Not always. It depends on the environment you're in, of course. But I would give it a good evaluation and make sure that, hey, is it worth just throwing it away and getting a new one, or should I contact the manufacturer and get stickers? That's something you guys need to figure out. What I have done in the past, I have actually called Grainger out, whoever you're using, whether it be Grainger or somebody similar to them, and did a walkthrough with them and had them evaluate our entire facility. And at the end of the walkthrough, we replaced, this most recent one I did, we replaced about 50 ladders. Of course, Grainger was happy about that. And I'm not endorsing Grainger at all. Whoever you want to use, you don't even need to use them. But it was helpful because we had to order a lot of ladders. And of course, they got it done very quickly with us. But I would recommend that you do that. You do something like that. Do it on your own. But do an inspection of all your ladders and make sure that every employee has 3 points of contact when they use a ladder. And again, this is part of your internal safety training. This is not training, guys. I'm giving you an evaluation or kind of a starting point for you to implement something like this at your location. Of course, if you need help, always call ROI Safety Services. And then controlling the hazards, you guys just can't do this. And we've all done it, right? Maintain proper position. Do not lean away from your ladder. Always keep your weight centered between the side rails. You could go up as high as the ladder will allow you, as long as you're within the two side rails. I've seen people go up way higher than I could ever imagine. I think 30, 40 feet, which is insane. But, as long as you're within those two side rails, you're fine. But do not go beyond. 3 feet above the landing is required for portable ladders. I was at another client. I will also not name who they are. They are in Irvine, California. And I was at their location I was actually walking with the manager of the facility. And we saw a contractor who did not comply with this 3-foot compliance. And he did it pretty comfortably in terms of I can assume that he does this quite often. And it kind of scared me because I was like, this guy, eventually you're going to fall, man. You need this 3-foot buffer to go to the landing area safely. And this is something that we see quite often. And are you responsible if a contractor is doing this at your site? Yes, you are. You are responsible for them, and employees as well as contractors. Here's a fixed ladder. This looks like a really old rusty one, but you got to have a cage around it. This is actually a requirement. If you are not using the ladder at your site, put some signage on there. Lock it out or do what you got to do. I know a lot of companies do that. Here's some other fall hazard risk with scaffolding. Of course, this is primarily going to be with construction. And there's a whole regulation for the construction scaffolding. This is a common site. When we do go out to construction sites, this is very common. Proper setup, of course, we're not going to touch on this. This is construction. Another example. Now, we do have clients that use these scaffolding platforms in aerospace, and they do inspect them daily. It is definitely something that I would highly recommend if you have a platform like this within your general industry working environment. You want to inspect it regularly, make sure all the fittings are good, the posts are in good shape, but do a regular inspection on that. And again, more examples of that, safe access. And then make sure that you're training your folks. Again, train your people, site specific, train them regularly, get signatures. We're not going to cover this. So this pretty much concludes our training. These are some other areas I'm not going to touch on, but I want you guys to understand the purpose of this training that I'm doing weekly is just to give you an introduction. Hey, I do have fall hazards. Everybody has fall hazards at the workplace. Everybody uses ladders, scissor lifts, that's part of our fall protection, scaffolding, step stools, or just walk into your car and dealing with a slippery surface, or walking through manufacturing and dealing with a slippery or trip hazards in your working environment. Everybody deals with this. What we want to do is identify, fix, and then of course train our people and document the training. Right? It didn't happen if you didn't document it. That is something I learned very, very, very early in my career. Here's some other examples of some. This is a good one. Here we got some good pictures. This is great. I love this. Obviously, you can't put anything in a stair device or a stairwell. This is another vault. That looks real sketchy. Another crazy surface here. These pictures are, they're unfortunately very common in the working environment in which we visit often. I call these the $30,000 hole right here. Probably could be more, but when I say that, I see these all the time. These holes like this, all in all different kinds of manufacturing environments. And essentially, if somebody falls in there, that person's going to get hurt pretty bad. And just your medical bills alone could be 30 grand. And then all the other, stuff you got to deal with when it comes to getting that person back to work. So cover these holes up. They're very simple to do. A simple plate could go over that. And that's a big one. I'm worried about the small ones too. I love that guy with the ladder right here on the A-frame. Oh man, I see this so often. There's no surprise that there's 6,000 people a year die in the U.S. on the job. 6,000 people a year. And I haven't checked OSHA's website lately, but we're well on our way to reaching that every year. And this is the reason why, because we're not training, we're not giving workers the proper tools, we're having them work in conditions that we're not inspecting and making sure they're safe. Simple things that we can do to prevent fatalities, to prevent people from getting hurt. It's not hard. We just got to be responsible as business owners and managers to assess our environments in which we are responsible for. You are responsible for your work environment. Nobody else is. Nobody else is. If you hire somebody to do a work in your facility and they get hurt, that's your responsibility. So don't take any chances. I think it's a wonderful thing to be an owner of a business and to hire people and create products and do wonderful things. But if you're not looking out for your people that work for you, shame on you. You need to be responsible for them. You are responsible for them and their safety. My name is Jesse. I'm with ROI Safety Services. I'm here to assist you in your working environments and help you guys to create a zero injury working environment. And it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But the first step in doing that is being responsible for your working environment. If you don't know something, contact me. I can help you. I can walk you through some of this stuff. I'm doing this every week, every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be here. I'll be here for the rest of the year. I'm committed to that. I'm going to provide, this information kind of a training. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Give me some topics that you'd like to hear about. Next week, I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but I know that we will be doing an interview with an OSHA employee. This particular person has many years experience dealing with inspections and consultations. I actually called her many, many times over the last, I think it's been 5 years. I've been calling her up for certain things that I need clarity on. And she's been really helpful. And she is willing to do an interview with us to kind of give us an insight on, who OSHA is, what's their purpose, and how can they help? They are here to help us. And I include me in that because I don't know everything. I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm learning stuff often. And, I love calling them up when I get stuck. Hey, OSHA, what's going on with this particular issue I'm having? And they'll usually be really clear on their response. So I appreciate it. You guys have a blessed weekend. Again, Jesse with ROI Safety Services, where we want to create zero injuries in your working environment. Thank you very much.